Hello, I'm Tony Main, Director at GallantFew's The Darby Project, which serves Army Rangers as well as Patriot Challenge. And it is my pleasure today to have on our Leader Chats Mr. Phil Randazzo. Phil is a friend and a mentor and the founder of American Dream U. So, Phil, you tell me, what are we going to talk about today?
You set the agenda, so I'm all you, brother. You tell me. I think we're going to talk about kind of my experience sitting in front of over 17,000, men and women like yourself who are in the process of a uncertain transition, whatever that uncertainty means. It's, now we're talking about uncertainty when it comes with, a worldwide pandemic. In 2008, we were having different discussions. It was about, global financial concerns. So we've learned a lot, and we think we've developed some ideas that will kind of give soldiers and unfair advantages and spouses to kind of break through the noise of what's going on and really try to find meaningful, purposeful work when they get out of the military.
Well, I was lucky, Phil. I ran into American Dream U by happenstance. A Ranger, Jesse Yandell, when he was transitioning out, I think he connected with you and felt so passionate. He brought American Dream U into a 1st Ranger Battalion down in Savannah, and I got to see the concept of the different speakers kind of presenting. Could you talk about how you evolved, and not just the in-person, but how you try to connect with folks virtually?
Yeah, so we've done about 160 live events, mostly in this country. We not that we don't love Killeen, Texas, or Fayetteville, North Carolina, or Columbus, Georgia, but we've been to Japan, Germany, where else? Italy, amazing places. And we've just brought some of the world's best entrepreneurs, right? Founders of Grand Style, founders of Combat Flip-Flops, founders of Sam Adams Beer, non-veterans like guys like Tim Ferriss, Joe DeSena, the founder of Spartan Race. And they come and they just share their experience and just kind of give whatever they have. They're not holding back. We're not selling anything. And I think you experienced that with Jesse. We just try to bring the best talent and just kind of let them know what's possible when they get out of the military. And I think, transition classes are great. I think there's a lot of great content in there, but they're kind of being taught by folks who maybe really never have left base, right? They were in the military, they were in the Army for 20 some years, and then they go from one building to another. They just put on a different uniform and they're there teaching. And so we want to bring people who have been there and done that in the past and share kind of their mistakes, their fears, lessons learned, same way you guys do it, when you train for deployments and missions, right? You want to talk to guys who have been there before, who have done what you're going to do. And so that's what we do. And so we're pivoting now to some online events, like kind of what we're talking about, because people are kind of shelter in place and they've got a little bit of extra time, potentially to take that and to, educate themselves and learn, and then also connect with other people. And that's a big factor. I mean, you and I got connected through Jesse. I just talked to Jesse a couple nights ago. He's doing great. Sounded amazing. Working on new things. And he had a new opportunity because of connections he met. And so it's so important to really leverage your network. And then once you leverage that network, just to try to provide value to them and just not ask, just provide some value. So yeah, we're really excited about some new stuff we're launching. We're really excited about working with you, Tony. And, we had a chance to meet in person and spend a little time here in Las Vegas. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at.
You're good. You're back.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're up to right now.
Well, great. And so now, if I'm a nonprofit or I'm an Army leader and I hear about this American Dream U, we can bring great speakers kind of together to kind of show a little bit of more holistic type of transition support to show that we care about the guys and the girls in uniform. But what does it take? What would an American Dream U look for? Are they looking for a facility? Would it have to be 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, command buy-in? What are you looking for when someone reaches out to you to possibly do an event in the future?
That's a great question. So we've had events as small as 12, 14 folks who are senior leaders, majors and above. And we've had events where we've had 850 folks come in. So it's hard to explain, Tony, what we do. It's like, oh, how am I going to find value with some entrepreneur coming in here and sharing with us? Well, these guys have obviously done some very successful things in their lives, and they have something to share. And it's mostly what you'll hear from some of our speakers is more about their failures and how they got there. So buy-in is really important to us. If we have command level, we were supposed to do a group with 10th group, and 10th group all at Fort Carson bought in. They're like, hey, we're going to come back and put soldiers in seats. So I'd love to say we have, quote, a minimum of 50 soldiers or 100 soldiers. It's more importantly that the soldiers and the spouses want to be in those seats than they're being told to be in the seats. Now, I will tell you that when it's a voluntold type event, we see soldiers sitting there, kind of sitting back like, another briefing, right? They think we're going to just do a death by PowerPoint kind of a thing. And all of a sudden you have them start leaning in. And we did an event, Tony, that they were told to be there. And we had a group of soldiers come up and say, hey, sir, we sat in the far back because we signed in and we were going to sneak out. We were waiting for a bad speaker to bolt because we had places that we could be besides here, and we couldn't leave. We had one great speaker after another. So I love just sharing and bringing people. So we really don't have any minimums, but we really would like an opportunity to have some buy-in from leadership.
And I love that term buy-in. The biggest thing that I got from the one American Dream U session that I went to from one of the speakers, just put it so well, to go into a meeting once you get in the business world, but I really think it applies to life. Go into a meeting. Obviously, you know what you want to get out of the meeting. I mean, that's really basic. If people haven't kind of figured out that they need to go in a meeting with what they want to get out of it yet, that might be kind of an issue. But he's like, go in with the mindset of, I am going to provide everyone there or select people value. How am I going to provide them value? So it's almost servant leadership of business. And I want to apply that to how y'all kind of run your online programs, because you relayed a story to me before of how you kind of found when you put that stuff out on YouTube, when you're just trying to do good for the mostest, right, that you weren't really getting that return on really training or connecting with veterans, and you went to a login format instead.
Yeah, and all of our content is free at this point, and that's good and bad, right? So when they think something is free, they think, well, what's the value, right? I can just surf on YouTube and find a whole bunch of great TED Talks and find a whole bunch of leaders and stories and all that. And you can do that. It's not really organized. And so what we've done is we put it behind a login. First and foremost is, I get these incredible speakers who charge $25,000 a talk, $40,000 a talk, $50,000, and they do it for nothing. So I tell them this content is for soldiers, veterans, and families. And so we had that login to kind of protect that. Now someone could go in and put in some, fake credentials, but that's okay. They're just going to learn some stuff. But what we found is they start a program like anything else. Like, how many books have you started that you didn't finish? You probably not many, probably finished quite a few. But a lot of people will start something and not finish. And I'm guilty of that too. It's like I buy all these online programs, I do all these things, and then I'm in like module 3 and I'm like, oh, I got what I need, and I don't go back. And so I think that's a big deal to finish. And so what we're developing now, Tony, with some of our new online content is it's much shorter content, 4 or 5 minute videos, a download, like here's 7 amazing resumes. Just download them to Word or whatever you use, Google Docs, and just put in your information. Don't change the font. Don't do anything, because the hiring manager spends literally 4.6 seconds on your resume anyways. So to spend 100 hours on your resume, that's not where you should be spending your time. So just download one of these resumes. We have a great LinkedIn course.
Perfect. That's how I did mine. Yep. Years ago.
83% of companies are searching on LinkedIn, right? And soldiers should be on LinkedIn and connecting with veterans who they might have either served with or the same unit or just they've been in the Army. And we just give scripts. It's like, here's a script you use to connect with people on LinkedIn. So just a quick example, and I don't want to get off too much off topic, but here's something I think your audience can use. When you're getting out of the military, first off, it's never too soon to start. So get a ton of connections on LinkedIn. Go on our LinkedIn platform. We have a free course. Watch it on your phone, have a laptop or computer, and just do what it is.
Exactly.
That's it. Right?
Exactly. I mean, that's all I did. I paused the training, got caught up, saved it, had somebody else proofread it. I'm a horrible speller, and that's yeah. So if a video is 15 minutes, plan on an hour for sure, right? But yeah, 100%. Sorry,
yeah.
Great course.
And then as you're going through, you build your LinkedIn connections, right? You get a whole bunch of connections. LinkedIn does a great job, and they tell you to connect with. And then if you're a job seeker, I talked to a couple soldiers this week, and I'm like, who are your top 25 companies you want to work for? They're like, oh, I haven't thought about it. I'm like, think about it. Go on LinkedIn, search for veterans within those 25 companies, and search, if you're in the Army, search for one that was in the Army. I mean, LinkedIn tells you everything. And say, hey, Tony, I see you transitioned out of the military in 2017. You landed at an amazing company. I would love to see how you made your transition a success. Did you lose me?
All right, we got you.
Okay. So is it my connection?
No, I think you're probably good. I've got movers in. I'm in transition. I'm in a constant state of transition.
There you go. So here's something that when, again, I don't know where I left off, but you get your top 25 companies you want to work for. You find a veteran that worked in an organization, hopefully someone in the Army, and go, hey, we served at different times at Fort Benning, and we see you landed at this great company. I would love to spend 10 minutes on the phone with you to see how you made your transition a success. And we literally have that. You just cut and paste, you put it in there, you personalize it a bit. And if you got that LinkedIn message, Tony, can you, if you got that LinkedIn message,
I got you now.
If you got that LinkedIn message, you're going to oh, someone wants to see how I'm a success. You're going to respond, you're going to set up a call. And what's going to happen is you're going to have this great connection. It's not a 10-minute call, it's a 40-minute call. And then Tony, you're going to go, Phil, don't send your resume to HR. Like, it's going to get lost. Send me your resume. Let me walk it down. Let me tell them I just had a conversation with you. I can tell you this has happened hundreds of times of people we shared this with, versus going on LinkedIn and going, hey, Tony, I see you're a veteran. I'm looking for a job there. Attached is my resume. Can you walk it down to HR? You're going to be like, who are you? Right?
Exactly.
The same thing gets accomplished, but one way is just a way to kind of flatter somebody into sharing with them. Everyone likes to talk about how successful they are, or how great they are, or all they've accomplished, right? I mean, there's very few people, like when I get invited to be on even this, I'm like, first off in my head, I'm thinking, why would Tony want me to share? Like, what do I have, to share? And then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I have something to share. And so all these things, like you say, are so important, right? Just watch someone who's already done it and just don't try to figure it out. Like, I was not a good student in school. It's like, show me an example and I'll just do what I'm supposed to do. Just like you did the LinkedIn course. And I'm a horrible speller. Like, spell check can't even figure out. It's like use the dictionary. You ever see that when you click on it?
Sure. Too often.
Yeah, way too often.
So I want to then kind of now move in, like how you got started doing this, because your story is interesting in and of itself. And so I have this book there right there, Mission Next, which is kind of, I won't say how it all got started, but I mean, I would say your manifesto, right? And I am this far into the book, by the way, and I think I've had it for 5 years. So just to the point, I start a lot of things.
Yeah.
I didn't start it until we had this schedule. So at least I've made some progress. Could you kind of talk about that Mission Next and how that's morphed? Because I am prepared with an agenda. I think the Mission Next might also kind of touch on lessons learned a little bit and what you learned from veterans, and you tell that story of probably what you've experienced with working with veterans.
Yeah. So again, I personally probably had conversations with no less than probably about 1,500 soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen. And what I did was I interviewed, I don't know, probably 120 for that book, 120 really successful ones. Everyone from veterans who literally are billionaires to people that just set up a business. It's a lifestyle business. They're making $4,000 or $5,000 a month. They have no overhead. They're loving their life. To people who work within corporations, who are leaders within corporations. And I wanted to see what they did and kind of ask them Monday morning quarterbacks. Like, if you could go back 12 months before you left the military, what would you have done differently? And so that book is literally a story of, Blaine Smith, who used to run Team Red, White, and Blue. The founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation is a veteran. A whole bunch of just amazing people within that book. And I had help writing that, by the way. And that was done by a professional writer whose son is actually one of the characters in the book. His son is Noah, who had some issues with alcohol, some drug issues when he left the military. And so he was just like, his heart and soul was into this stuff. So what I really found was, Tony, is, in talking to all these men and women, is they saw failure as a big defeat when they were transitioning to become a civilian. Like, you guys are not trained to fail at all. And once they started to realize that it's okay, and I wouldn't even call it failure, just okay to take a step back and reevaluate things so that you can kind of learn from that interview or a job you didn't get to take 2 steps forward. And so once their mindset kind of shifted to that it's okay to not be okay, and not to land this type of position or job, or if they start a business and it doesn't succeed, that's when things started clicking for them. Then the second thing I noticed was they wanted to surround themselves with guys that they lived with, trained with, deployed with, fought with. And they were very disappointed when they hit the civilian world, right? Like, we've had thousands of people attend. I go, hey, who here shows up on time for their, whatever they're supposed to do in the military? Everyone looks around like, who's this old gray-haired white guy? It's like, of course we show up on time. Who works, until the job gets done? Who's resourceful? All these things. In the civilian world, no one shows up on time. They just don't. No one takes pride in their work. No one, works well with other. You guys are always about we. In the civilian world, it's about, hey, I, right? Everyone's trying to take credit for it. And so there was a big adjustment for a lot of the men and women I talked to going into the civilian world. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I think it's team purpose, and it just gets ingrained from whatever service basic training. And that word service already kind of means you're working towards a bigger goal, even though your promotion system and everything else. I didn't take a job with a very big bank coming out of Ohio State because that didn't provide me the same level of purpose that serving in the military, even though I was really doing it for myself. Sometimes service is very self-centered as to the initial why. But I think that makes total sense. It's a different team. It's a different tribe. And the values of those tribes are in competition, probably to what you've experienced in the military. Yeah.
The other thing that was a big thing that we keep hearing, and this is a human issue, not just a military issue, is, Tony, when you take that uniform off, you're used to wearing that uniform, you're thanked, people buy you coffee, you're recognized, all that stuff. When you take that uniform off, you're Tony from Columbus, right? You're no longer a soldier. And that whole identity thing, and we've had, I don't know, probably a dozen professional football players, UFC fighters, and when they hang up that uniform and they leave, we had Brian Jennings was with the 49ers for 13 years, never missed a snap, right? Played every single game for 13 years. And then when Harbaugh said, hey, you're a second stringer, we got to bring one of these younger guys in, he goes, I'm not, this isn't me. Hung up that uniform and he gave 3 great talks, American Dream. He cried the whole way home. Like, who am I? Who is Brian? And I think, I would challenge you, Tony, and now you've got this great project, but, who are you as a person? And I think that's a difficult question to ask. And for me, it was difficult. I don't want to get into my story too much, but boy, I had a lot of anger, resentment, I was just not a great person. I'm wearing a combat flip-flops t-shirt right now, be a better human, to remind me to be, right? But I didn't know who I was. My whole identity was wrapped around how much money I made, how successful I was. I had this measurement of success in that way, which was not serving at all. And so I would challenge everybody to kind of ask themselves who you are when you leave, when you leave the military. Again, it's that tribe. You're leaving an amazing tribe. And when you go home, you might not have that tribe.
And so that brings me to what a perfect take. As I see it, to the next point, which is I put down here partnerships, right? I've realized in this space, in the transition space, not only that GallantFew can't do it all by themselves, that we don't want to. Because we don't want to be an inch deep and a mile wide. So GallantFew will never launch an entrepreneurial type program. There's already a great one out there that exists. And in our mind, that's American Dream U. So I want to be able to, and I've started referring all Rangers because of the mentality, and I just know the mentality of that very small minority of the military. They will flourish generally, given their makeup, in any type of entrepreneurial endeavor. They want to be in charge. They've been members of the team, and generally the reason they get out, they're ready to be in charge. They just don't know how. You've mentioned Team Red, White, and Blue. Why would I ever do a big physical fitness program where there is a community-based resource for folks, right? So I had it in here. How can we, the do-gooders, then work together? It sounds like you're a name dropper. You're not. You're talking about people that you've worked with. How did that kind of come together for you? We're like, oh, American Dream U can't be Phil Randazzo's project, right? How did you kind of encapsulate that? When were you like, oh, this is what will get the guys' attention. This is what will make this endeavor last.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm not a veteran. So for me to stand up there and speak in front of a couple hundred soldiers, it's like, great. They might see me as someone who's had a little bit of success in their life, but I've never worn the uniform. But I also think there's value in, and we bring, half of the speakers we bring in are not veterans, because at some point you're going to be a civilian. And so I don't care, like Ryan Holiday is one of my favorite people in the world. I don't know if you ever, if you're familiar with Ryan, he's an author. He wrote Ego is the Enemy, Stillness is the Key. I mean, he's just obstacles the way. All these professional athletes and teams and military people use his book as a way to lead. And so I don't want to not bring Ryan to a base because he's not a veteran. Excuse me, Tony. But, like Griff from Combat Flip-Flops, he's a Ranger and such a good dude, and, got an opportunity to go on Shark Tank, worked his tail off. But it wasn't like he left the Rangers and all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to, create this business. He had a tough transition. He had a tough, he'll tell you, his content is up online. I remember him speaking at Fort Lewis. He's like, I drank, I got fat. He's like, the Army wasn't paying me to work out anymore. I felt sorry for myself. I couldn't figure out my own way. And now it's a different struggle when you're an entrepreneur, but guess what? He's in charge. He gets to build his team. So it's definitely not about me. I love trying to find the right people to bring to the bases or online to share what I think is relevant based on the conversations I'm having all week. Like I try to have at least 8 or 10 conversations a week with soldiers, Marine sailors, and airmen, that are, it's a challenging time right now to be getting out of the military. And a lot of people, Tony, you may know this, they hit the recruitment numbers, I think in April for all of the whole year, right? Retention and, it's like, because there's not a lot of opportunities out there right now with 35 million Americans unemployed right now. So, and so for selfish reasons, I'll give you a little selfish reasons. Like I get to hang out with all these amazing people. And so I learn from them. I spend a day or two with them, and I kind of peel back and say, how'd you get here? I mean, really, how did you get here? And like you said, it's finding the right tribe. Like Grunt Style, an amazing clothing brand. Like Daniel just created a whole bunch of amazing products. And then he built his team around, all veterans, you're basically running his office. He wanted to be surrounded by that same tribe. He missed that tribe. So, but he didn't just start Grunstyle and start selling tens of millions of dollars worth of t-shirts, right? For a year, he was in his car selling t-shirts. I mean, how many people would have given up after a month in their car, or 6 months in their car, or 9 months in their car? So I'm just, I get excited for the opportunity, to bring people in that I think would serve, your community.
All right. And so and usually you would lead with this question, but I wanted to start with, hey, people, go to AmericanDreamU.org, check out the programs and the resources and sign up. That's why you're on. That's the call to action here. But now you kind of touched on how you do it, what you do, but what's the why? You mentioned you weren't a veteran. So what was going on in your life that just, because you're not doing this for money, right? Anybody in the nonprofit world for money, you do need a better business acumen, right? So why? What was that cause to say I'm successful in my individual pursuits in my business? I would like to bring on more stress to my family, right? To help other people. What was that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I make no money from this. Like, I funded it for 17 years, no salary. I pay my own travel. I've been on some national news, and they're like, oh, why are you doing this? Is this to promote your business? I go, well, I sell health insurance in Las Vegas. I don't think military needs health insurance in Las Vegas.
What kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I have some other companies, but no one even knows what I do, which is kind of interesting. And they're like, oh, you just want free travel. You want to go to these military bases. I go, Fayetteville, North Carolina is not like TripAdvisor's top 10 places to visit. With all due respect to people listening to this in Fayetteville or Fort Sill, Oklahoma, or, all these places. So I've always wanted to be a teacher ever since I was in high school. Like, that was it. Like, I just wanted to teach. And my dad, God bless him, always had this thing. He says, those that can do, those that can't do, teach. So that stuck in my head, the program we get as kids. And again, I wasn't a good student. I had a 1.8 GPA my senior year, couldn't get into college. I went to school to play sports. Like, I was like, why do they have classrooms? Like, they need fields and gyms. That's all I cared about was sports. So I couldn't play sports my senior year. Went to junior college, somehow got into college. And then I got my girlfriend at the time, now wife of almost 30 years, pregnant. Because when you're in college and you have no money, the best thing to do is get your girlfriend pregnant. That's like the perfect class. That's the only class I did well at in college, I think.
Right on the milestone chart. Like, Dad, we're doing it. We're really making it happen. There you go.
And so I was a secondary education major, and I said, hey, how much can I make as a teacher? This is back in the early 90s. Like, oh, you're going to make $21,000 a year. I'm like, wow, that's not that much money, but I'm going to coach. So how much will I make if I coach sports? Oh, well, you'll make an extra $3,000 a year. And I was like, I just did the math. It just didn't work. And so I've always had the teacher inside of me to share. And then when 9/11 happened, like every other American, glued to the TV, praying they would find people. Like, literally, I don't think I slept for at least a week. Just, there's pulling out people. And then I just had this urge. I'm like, I have to do something. I have to figure something out to serve. Played college sports. I've needed 2 knee replacements since the late 90s. Went into a National Guard recruiting, and they're like, you're a big dude. There's no way, right? There's no way. So then I literally applied. I found the email to be an air marshal, because I figure if I can't run, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". At the time I was 250. I could walk down or run down 4 aisles of a plane and take somebody out. Like, there's not much running involved in being an air marshal. Everyone was trying to be an air marshal. That was out of the question. So then after the Iraq war started, I'm sitting there, with a group of people, and we're watching. Literally, the war was started on TV. You just see the tomahawks going. And then they turned to all these anti-war protesters. And I'm like, man, there's 18, 19, 20-year-old kids over there, and these parents have to sit there and watch, this thing. It's like, and they haven't heard from their kids. And, you have kids, right, Tony? It's like, if you lose your kid in the mall, even for a minute, you get this panic feel. And I just felt that for those families, watching this. And I turned to my wife and I said, we're going to have a pro-troops rally. She rolled her eyes like, all right, here's another crazy idea. I had 4,000 people come to my parking lot with 5 days notice. Even the LA Times covered it in Vegas. I'm like, man, there are people that want to support what you're doing, Tony, what your brothers are doing, brothers and sisters, but they didn't know how to do it. So that's when I started, the foundation. It was called Defending Freedom at the time. For 10 years, we helped the wounded. We were one of the biggest contributors to Wounded Warrior Project when there was just a handful of guys, John Melia, filling up backpacks. Now they're kind of lost their way. I think they're finding back their way. Helped build Fisher homes. We did a lot of stuff. And then as less men and women were come back wounded, I said, how can we serve? You always, as an entrepreneur or even within an organization, you always got to be kind of asking the question, how can I continue to serve a bigger audience? And so at the time, he was a general officer. I said, what can we do? And he says, for some, the transition is difficult. I put together a handful of entrepreneurs and a UFC fighter named Forrest Griffin. I don't know if you're familiar with Forrest Griffin, but a big name in the fight game, a good friend and a funny guy. And we flew up to Fort Lewis and we did an event, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is like a barrage of breath air. I mean, they thought we were a whole bunch of retired general officers going to do a PowerPoint slide on what's next. And that's what my why was, really. It was just to share. And then I get pretty vulnerable and share some things about me as a person and how I wasn't a good person. And I've literally had soldiers stand up and go, dude, you're in my living room. Just because I wasn't a great person, right? I just wore masks. I go to an event, I wear a mask. I go to work, I wear a mask. I go home, it's like I was just exhausted not being myself and just not being a nice person. So time right now with what's going on with the country, someone asked me yesterday, a group that I work with, and I'm like, man, we just got to work on ourselves first, right? Have our family see us being the person that we want to be, have our community see it, and then start there. It's such a tragedy, everything going on right now. So that's kind of my why. And in 17 years, I got this grayish going here, up here. I look
at the point, it's becoming more prominent.
Yeah.
You got to keep it closer. That's for having the Western flow going.
Right. I look like the guy from Tony Soprano's, Paulie. You know who I'm talking about? You ever see that? He's got that great. Anyway, We're getting off topic, but no, Tony, I love it. And when you and I sat back in my conference room I think we probably talked for 90 minutes. It's like I get excited sharing, my experiences and experiences of other soldiers, and again, all military, just to help them know where the landmines are when they're getting ready to transition out. I think our organization, besides the actual TAP and transition, we've seen just about as many people transitioning as any other organization out there.
Sure, 100%. And so we're going to close this, and I want it to be all American Dream You focus. I appreciate the time and you coming in. I appreciate you telling the story. And so now, if I am a transitioning service member, or I just come into the military, so I'm integrated into that culture, and I come on the American Dream You website, americandreamu.org, what is the founder of that organization, the three things that you're telling them to do?
Yeah, so we don't really try to tell them to do anything, right? So our three areas of focus, right, are wellness. You got to take care of yourself first, right? When you're in pain, it's really difficult to make good decisions. If you're not sleeping, it's really difficult to make good decisions. So it's taking care of yourself first. So we have great content on that. We're building even more content. It's also about relationships, right? People at the end of their life aren't talking about all the money they made or all the things they accomplished. They all wish they had better, stronger relationships. So when you get out, you may need to start some new relationships, right? Networking, they call it networking, whatever. So we have a lot of great content on there about how do you start building meaningful relationships. And then the third thing is money. We got to make money, right? I couldn't do what I did or continue to do if I didn't make money. So how do you find a more meaningful, purposeful job, or how do you start a business? Most people don't, all the greats that I can think of didn't go into it and go, man, all I want to do is make a ton of money. There are some folks like that, but they all tried to solve a problem and then the money came, right? It's if you're chasing money, you'll never get there. And so, we help them try to find something meaningful, purposeful, and then the money always follows. And again, there's no correlation, Tony, between making a ton of money and happiness.
Exactly.
There really isn't. And 30-second story, I met REI one day and I had a Combat Flip-Flops t-shirt on, or was a grunt style, and he goes, "Oh, I got one of those t-shirts at home." I'm like, "Oh, you veteran?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, what branch?" I was a Marine Corps. And I go, "How'd you end up here at REI?" I'm like, "What'd you do?" And he goes, "This is the best place ever to work." He goes, "I sat in a cubicle and for probably 5 years, I was miserable. I hated going to work. I was unhappy." By the way, 85% of all Americans are unhappy going to work these days. And he goes, "I love the outdoors." He goes, "I get discounts and they send me to cool places to try out the equipment." He goes, "This is the best place on the planet to work." The dude had a smile ear to ear, and he almost looked at me like, "Why would you even ask me why I'm working here?" Right? So on the website and all our online classes, and by the way, now you can join as a team. So if you want to come in with 2, 3, 4 guys, spouses, whatever the case may be, you can come as in a team and we'll assign a coach to that team and hold you accountable. We'll do a 21-day and a 30-day sprint course. It's like, all right, you want to get a LinkedIn up? Let's help you crush your LinkedIn. We'll have people looking at it, hold you accountable. We'll help you get connections. Resume, how do you sit for an interview? How do you negotiate your salary? I've talked to so many soldiers and like, "Oh, well, I don't really know how to negotiate my salary." Right? And so we talk about those type of things. And you've never had to negotiate your salary in the military.
Yep. You saw the Army Times in the spreadsheet will show you every year. You're good.
Yeah. So how do you do it? How do you confidently sit in front of a hiring manager and go, "Listen, I know you're interviewing other people. I don't have all the qualifications for this job, but I'm telling you, here's what I've done in the Army. Here's what I've done, not what we've done. Showed up on time. I was resourceful. I did training. I did learn this. I was in charge of millions of dollars worth of equipment, all these different, men and women. I can figure this out. And by the way, if you want me to work for free until I understand your systems or processes for a week or 2 weeks, whatever it takes, I'll do that." And a hiring manager's like, "Oh my gosh, this is like a blessing." They don't hear that kind of stuff. And we've taught that technique and people have gotten amazing jobs. And the company says, "You're not going to work for free, but come in here." And then they start negotiating their salary. So that's what you'll find on the website. This isn't what they're teaching really anywhere else, because this is all taught by entrepreneurs who hire people. And the biggest challenge of any entrepreneur is finding the right people to join the team. So when you go in for an interview, Tony, you're solving a problem for somebody. You're literally solving one of the biggest problems they have in the company. So that's what you'll find there. And there's not a whole bunch of fluff on there. You can kind of get lost in some of the videos and some of that content, which is all great. But we really want you guys to get in and get out, find what you need, implement it, right? You and I could watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos, TED Talks, take journals full of notes. Like I got journals full of notes, and we don't implement anything. It does nothing for us, right? It just doesn't do anything. So that's really what people will find there. And by the way, people can hit me up. I mean, I get a ton of emails. I respond to all of them. It's real simple. It's just phil@americandreamu.org. We can set up a time. Again, I try to talk to at least 10, service men and women per week, just to kind of ask them some questions and steer them to the right organization. We might not be a fit for what they do, So I love this stuff, Tony. It's like,
and it shines through, Phil. And I just want to close. I want to say thank you so much for being here. I mean, I'm a supporter. I'm a member. I believe in American Dream U, and I believe that it's so important because the mission's never going to end. I think until we realize that the moment we recruit and bring in a young American, that we need to work on their reintegration in parallel to their service. Until we get there, I think we're a long way off. We'll always have a place. And for anyone out there listening who didn't serve, there are ways to be involved. If you're a CEO listening, or you think that there's someone in your business who you've heard speak, I mean, Phil has the opportunity for professionals, right? Maybe didn't serve or did serve. They can sign up, right? And I know you bet, but to become a speaker, to provide value locally and possibly nationally. So I see Sarah, she actually just asked, how do we join American Dream U? Once again, go to americandreamu.org and then check out all the offerings. Once again, as a service member, as someone in transition, the right or left side of your DD 214, and then as an American who wants to give back, I think Phil can find a place for you. So Phil, final thoughts, last words.
No, I appreciate everyone, and this is what we do. And there's a lot of fear and uncertainty out there right now. And again, just continue to work on yourselves. And you guys are the greatest organization on the planet. I mean, I have such military envy for all the stuff you do and the tribe you guys talk about. I played on teams, and that was the tribe. Find a tribe, whether it's American Dream U, you already got, access to GallantFew. Become part of something that you believe in. And that's gonna help solve a lot of problems. And then just be a good listener to people right now that might need somebody to talk to. And I think there's a lot of people that I think are going through some things that they're kind of being quiet about. And just be a good listener and a good friend. And also maybe pick up the phone and call some people that you haven't talked to in a while that you haven't heard from. I think that's really important, with all this isolation that we're going through. And Tony, I appreciate you. And again, Jesse Yandel, I want to thank him for connecting us. And Jesse and I had a great conversation. A lot of it was about you and all the work you're doing. And we can't wait to get down there and do a co-event with you guys.
Yeah, and it'll be great. So once that Ranger Outreach Center is up and running this fall in the heart of the Ranger community, which is Columbus, Georgia, we look forward to having you down. And when you're not there in person, we're going to pipe you in and the program's in by a VTC as well. Yeah. So we're super excited. So once again, Phil, American Dream U is fantastic. Everyone out there, go to AmericanDreamU.org. I think you'll be sold on the content and on the opportunities for others, much as we are. And we'll go ahead and close with letting you know that if you want to see all of this again, or a portion of it, if you miss it, it will be available on the GallantFew YouTube channel. And we close with, be brave, be bold, be gallant. Have a great day. Thanks,
Tony.